Can you hear me? Yes. Well, that's a pity. I've had lots of advice on giving a father of the bride speech, and some of it's been quite interesting. But one of the things that's been said about giving a father of the bride speech is to speak slowly and to make yourself heard. And Sylvia gave me that bit of advice last weekend about making yourself heard. So, and it reminded me of a speech I didn't make, and someone was talking. They said, "I can't hear you," and the person in the front said, "Well, I'll swap with you," which made me realise that it wasn't a very good speech. But anyway, this is the first time the father of the bride speech, and first of all, I'd like to say thank you all for coming, because it's wonderful to see so many people here, and people from various places. I mean, we've got people from, we've got obviously Coventry, Warwickshire, London, Bristol, Hereford, South East and Cornwall. And we've got in the end room, there's a group, there they are. They are known as the Video Club. And I won't say anything more, but the Video Club, you can talk to them and find out what they get up to. But they don't do videos anymore. We've also got people from further afield. We've got people from Michigan, Canada, France, Australia, and Madrid. And particularly on my own side of the family, I'd like to thank Jane, who's come all the way from Cancun, went through a hurricane. You've heard of Hurricane Isaac, and is here with us. And it's quite a long journey, and it's pretty torturous because they have to have several flights. It's not the sort of like the high season there. But anyway, thank you for coming. There are also guests today that couldn't come, and for various reasons. And one person I'd like to mention is Hannah's grandpa, who couldn't make it today. We always hoped he would come. I mean, he is 91, but he was unable to come. But I mean, hopefully his thoughts are with us. Also, quite strangely, there's two, Sasha and Elfie. They're not people. They're dogs. They're Yorkshire Terriers, and they couldn't come today because. But if you talk to Jane and you talk to my sister Nanette, they are passionate about Yorkshire Terriers. But they are being looked after by Hannah's godfather in Brittany. That's David. So I hope they get to see the photos today, because they do look at the photos. I think, as you can imagine, today has been an emotional time with Hannah getting married. I mean, she looks lovely, doesn't she? Yeah. And what about James? I mean, he looks lovely as well, doesn't he? Yeah. Harry mentioned him. Yeah. Has anybody shed any tears apart from the cake? So, I think the day's gone well so far. I mean, what do you think? Do you think it's all right? You're all right? Yeah, good. A lot of time has gone into the wedding. And I think a lot of people have been involved, but I think the prime movers and shakers that have made this wedding happen, pull it together, are Hannah and James. I mean, so thanks to them. They have been brilliant in organising it. Hannah's, well, you wouldn't probably know, but Hannah sent out various drafts of the order of running and things, which but you probably find out, get to know. But thanks to you for doing that. We were trying to think when we first met James, because it was some time ago, and I think we said when Hannah was moving out of her flat in Chiswick that James came on the scene, and I think where's Kat? Yeah, all right. Kat was there as well, moving out the flat, and James was there helping to move with the furniture. And that's the first time we met him. He seemed very nice and able, and the rest of it. Yeah, willing. That's what we like. And since that time, we've met up, and we've met for meals. James has been down to see us, and we got to know him very well. And I think he's a very kind, sensitive, and really nice person. Does that sound like you? Yeah. Well, it's funny that, because this is another speech, actually. But he is someone we're really happy to have as a son-in-law. Yeah. I've learned a lot about sport, because his background, his specialist background in PR is in sport. And he has an interest in cycling, which is quite nice. And I've got a book he gave me by Chris Hoy, which has been signed by him, so he's pretty good, really. Oh, you got that? What, the same copy? It might be slightly shallow there. So anyway, but most importantly, I think James knows how to handle Hannah. Now I remember asking. We were out for a meal one night. I remember asking James how they got together, and Hannah said that he asked her out, and I asked James, and he said it was the other way around. So I never got to the end of that. But anyway, it moved on. And I think we wondered sometimes, whether they would get married. Well, as you do as parents, but we didn't say much about it. But I hope James doesn't mind, but I'll share a story with you, which is really to do with how it did come about. And I think it's quite nice, really. James was going to New York on a business trip, and I heard about that he was going to get an iPad there because they were cheaper in the States. So I sent a text message to James. This is actually my wife, Anne. She was behind this, and she said, we'll find out we can get an iPad for him. So I sent something like saying iPads all round, thinking he might get a spare one for me. And 10 minutes later, he rang back, and I think, wow, gosh, this is pretty good. I'm in there. And we had a chat, and I thought he was going to say, yes, no problem. But instead he said he asked my permission to marry Hannah. I was totally surprised, especially I thought it was an iPad he was going to discuss. No. I had to buy that. Where we're in a local garden centre in Trowbridge. Like, people of our age go to garden centres for coffee, and that's where I had the phone call, and he may not know this. I stood up, I thought, because he wants to marry Hannah, and I stood up, and I thought, oh gosh. And I think I said, I can't remember exactly, I said, yes, brilliant. And then something I said, well, you know what Hannah is like. She doesn't suffer fools gladly. I think you might remember that. But James, being as he is, he wouldn't come back and say, well, that's not very nice, I'm not going to speak to you. So I was referring to my experience, because as her dad, I say things, and you get short shrift. And you probably might be familiar with that, but it's sort of her personality. Anyway, James and I are still friends. And yeah, well, I'll come to you in a minute. But what it did actually gave me a chance to reflect on both of them. I think James has been an honest and sincere person, and I was really touched by it. I mean, I might be flippant about the response, but actually it was really, really nice. I mean, to get that sort of thing, and it demonstrated to me, I sort of knew he was pretty committed, and he was very committed to Hannah. Also, I think, it's not like a one-way street. The two of them are very committed. And also made me think of possibly what sort of father-in-law I would be, especially, I think I asked him at the time, should I keep the wedding proposal a secret? And I heard him say, yes, because it was about 3 weeks before it was announced. And they were going away, and so I said, well, who shall I tell? I can't tell anybody. So, yeah. So anyway... it was sort of a really wonderful thing. I think I'd say it's sort of like being father of the bride. It was quite nice at the Red Lion last night. We were, a lot of friends there were meeting and talking. And when I said, I said, I'm Chris, I'm Hannah's dad, they parted, and I could get to the bar quite easily. Not necessarily getting a drink bought for me, but I could get to the bar. But that was quite nice. I've mentioned a bit about James, but I spent some time thinking about Hannah. I know she's determined, strong-willed, and if you say the wrong thing, you will know about it, which I've mentioned. With the run-up to the wedding, I discussed with Hannah what I should say about her and ran through some things by email. I'll just put this down, but there was I did email her and asked for things to say, and she sent this back, and you might be familiar, which is... heavily texted out because she phoned me and said, what are you going to say about me? And I said, well, I'm not telling you. But anyway, there's a couple of things to sort of like mention about her. Firstly, when she was very young, I think it was must have been about 3. We as a family, we come from Cornwall, and we like pasties, Cornwall in pasties. And I found out that Hannah liked pasties, and I remember we were in a place called St. Mauve's, and I think the other children were off elsewhere, and I bought a pasty for her, and Hannah was in a little pushchair, and she was there eating the pasty, and I thought, gosh, you're getting through the pasty. And I gave her another one, and I realised after a while, maybe it being a bit naive, that she was shoving down the back of the pushchair. So in fact, she wasn't actually eating very, very much. The other thing she likes is cornflakes. But I think when she was in New Zealand, she went on a tour to New Zealand, and I remember at 5 o'clock one morning, she rang us up to say that she had jumped out of a plane. And I think there was an element of surprise, because if you rung up at 5 o'clock in the morning, your daughter is like in another continent, and ring and say that she's jumped out of a plane. I think overall, as you might realise, Hannah loves clothes. And we have quite a selection at home, and I think she keeps a reserve collection under her bed in the flat. I did go through... when she worked at John Lewis, they gave a press release when she left. This is when she was at university. She worked at John Lewis on an internship. And I won't read it all, but at the end, they said the notes to editors. This was about her. They say, John Lewis and Peter Jones are now selling 7 for All Mankind jeans. Hannah will be pleased to hear that it will come in various colourways and will tone in with any colour she decides to apply to her hair in future. So finally, anyway, that's enough for me. I mean, just finally, this is a short pool. Any of you, well, you probably have. I mean, the men have been to the loo, and there's been in. I've never been to a loo where they've had poetry. Have you noticed that in the loo? I don't know, the ladies, is there poetry going on in the loo? Yeah. But anyway, there's one I picked up. They had a Spike Milligan one, and I thought it was quite good. And it said Hamlet to Ophelia, I'll draw a sketch of thee. What kind of pencil shall I use, to be or not to be? Do you get that? Yeah. So anyway, what I'd finally like to say, we welcome James to the family, and I hope you like us as much as we like you. So, cheers.
Not used one of these before. Okay, at the back. Yeah. Good. Well, Chris, thank you very much. Brilliant speech. And just to put it on record, I absolutely feel the same way. It's great to have you all as part of my extended family now too. It's been a great day, but I think the lead up the last few years, you've all been tremendously welcoming and in many ways remind me of my own family, the closeness of the cousins, the uncles, the aunts, and it's great to be kind of getting the addition of another one, so thank you. First, I'd like to thank everyone, as Chris said, for being here today. I think when the shoe's on the other foot and you're here as a guest, you kind of think, well, of course I'd come, I kind of wouldn't miss it for the world, etc., and you kind of assume that everyone would expect that, but I think when it's your wedding, you really do appreciate the efforts people make. As Chris said, we've got, I think, Australia, Dubai, Canada, America, and it really is humbling that people have made such an effort to kind of come and share in our day, and it really, really wouldn't be anything the same kind of without everyone that's here. And there's some kind of people that are particularly special of kind of dad's extended family as well. That it's great to have that kind of representation here today, so thank you very much. So this is where I turn my attention to the missus, the ball and chain, her indoors. She looked absolutely beautiful when I turned around. I've heard grooms say it before, but I saw her walk down the aisle and I turned around and I thought, God, I really am punching above my weight here. It's kind of, how did I manage this one? I'll come on to it later, but I'm not the only person that's thought that over the years. So, well, there's another story behind that. So, to give you a bit of background on the great Clifford Kent journey of love, Hannah and I met at our former employees, the Red Consultancy. It's a place where we both loved working. We really enjoyed it. There's friends here today that we're still very close to us. My business partner, Dan, a long-standing friend from Red, and that kind of set us on our way. In fact, we enjoyed it so much that we took a couple of mementos, two clients, a member of staff, 2 hole punches, and I think 15 memory sticks. So it's been a great service to us. They've done well. anyway, by the time Hannah joined, I'd already been at Red for a couple of years, and I was sitting on my pod one day, and my account director came back, who sat opposite me, and she said, "I think I've just interviewed the future Mrs. Clifford," which I thought, well, that's a big statement to make, and it was quickly followed by, "You'll be all over her like a cheap suit." Now, little did she underestimate the bumbling incompetence of this cheap suit. But to clarify for the record, Chris's early statement, it was me that did the chasing. And a year later, I reverted to my A game of copious amounts of alcohol, a bit of groping, and then finally succumbed to my charms. So it wasn't too long after that when Hannah and I had been dating. Probably we'd been out 2 or 3 times, and she invited me and my friends to a house party that her and Kat were holding. And we were there, we were chatting away in the kitchen. My friend Rich and I were chatting to Susie, wherever she is. And Hannah came in, and we kind of had a brief interchange, and Hannah went off again. And Susie said to me, at which point it became abundantly clear that Hannah hadn't told her anything about me or who I was, said, you really fancy Hannah, don't you? And I was being quite cocky because we'd been on a few dates, and I was like, well, yeah, she's a nice girl, we get on, etc., etc. And she kind of put her hand on my shoulder and said, I don't mean to be horrible, but Hannah's really pretty. No. So, yeah, just to reiterate even, I'd like to thank Hannah's family for the tremendous support they've been kind of given ever since we've been engaged. I know how much it kind of means to both Hannah and I to have everyone so close to us, and certainly like to extend that to the bridesmaids as well, who I think today followed a military schedule, which was alluded to earlier. I don't know whether everyone's familiar with the PDF format of a document, which is effectively something you send to a client if you don't want it to be tampered with. So Hannah felt the need to PDF the schedule just in case anyone wanted to kind of add in their own contributions. But they've all been absolutely fantastic. They've been a great support. I know how dear they are to Hannah's heart, and it's been great to have the sisters along. I think a special mention for Franch. Great solo, great song choice. And I think she pulled it off a treat. But to them all, they all looked absolutely stunning, and they've been amazing. So I'd like to raise a toast to the bridesmaids.
The bridesmaids. You don't cheer to it, Meg. We cheer to you.
And then moving on to my ushers, I'd like to thank Max, Hannah's brother, has been a great support. Tim and Dan, my brothers, as most of you know, they're 2 of the best mates anyone could hope for, and love them to bits. And I look forward to following their bad example for many years to come. But it's great to have you all kind of alongside me. Now on to my mum. She's an amazing woman, I think we can all agree, who since my dad passed away has had to take on and adjust to roles that I think in ideal circumstances none of us would have wanted to do. She's been a businesswoman, a teacher, an interior designer. Anything she's turned her hand to, she's excelled in. But I think the job that she is certainly best at and most at home at is just being a great mum. And I'd like to thank her with all my heart. And at that point, I'd also like to give a special mention to Tony, who in more recent years has been a great support to both mum and the family, and it's particularly comforting to me and all of us, I think, to know that she's got someone that cares about her as much as you do. So thank you very much. Moving on, there's obviously many people who couldn't be with us here today. As Chris mentioned, Hannah's grandpa John couldn't make it. He's an amazing man. We're sad that he wasn't able to, but we're hoping to catch up with him soon. But he certainly will have a glass raised to him this evening. So just another special mention for him, really. Also, the grandparents that are unfortunately no longer with us, I think we both share very, very similar memories from talking to Hannah of family do's gone by and how they all liked a good song and dance and drink by the sounds of it too. And I think there's cherished memories there that we both want to remember them today. Then there's two, I'll have to try and keep this short, try not to start blubbering, but there's two people in particular that I wanted to mention. The first is my friend Gareth, who died a few years ago. I would want him here, as we all would. I can't really say any more than that, but his mum and dad, John and Marianne, are here today, and really touched that they could make it and that they could represent Kaz, and it means a lot to me to have them here. And then finally, my dad, who is my hero, he always will be. Try and abide on a daily basis to the, not what would Jesus do, Father, but the what would Dennis do. Some would say I might have extended it to my jacket today, which was a step too far. But he is my hero. I still idolise him. 15 years later, I think it's a testament to the man that you still think about him every day. I think Stephen Gerrard and Nick Faldo have run him close over the years for top spot, but he's still holding on. So I just wish he was here today. That's all. So to Dad. And then finally, back to Han, my beautiful wife. I feel extremely, extremely lucky, proud, grateful, all of the above to know that I can spend the rest of my life with her. She, I maintain, is the most gorgeous girl I ever met. We get on. She knows my moods. I know her moods. We can sit in silence, which is a good quality, and not feel uncomfortable. But I feel genuinely lucky, and I love her to bits. So, to my wife.
To Hannah, yeah, and Jane.
And just as a handover, before the main event and the sweepstake starts, and I know he's getting nervous, so I won't kind of drag it out, but passing on to to Joe, he's my best friend in the world. We've known each other since we were born. He's a rock. I trust my life with him. He's not great at booking accommodations, we've found out, on the stag do's, but anything else, he's the man by your side, and it's great to have him standing there, even though he did admit to me today that he was bricking it, I think was the expression. So, yeah, without further ado, over to the best man.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Well, first of all, thank you, James, for those kind words. Secondly, I'm obviously aware there's a book running on this, so I've been told I need to speak a lot slower. I've also told I need to speak a lot faster. All I can tell you is I haven't actually practiced what I'm going to say today, so I have no idea how long this could take. But anyone who does know me knows it's not going to take over 20 minutes, which some of you have actually gone for, so sorry about that. First of all, just a couple of formalities. I think, first of all, just like everyone to stand and raise their glasses to the generosity of the parents, Anne, Chris and Sylvia. To Anne, Chris and Sylvia. And secondly, just on behalf of the bridesmaids, I'd just like to say thank you to James for his kind toast. They do indeed look absolutely wonderful and have done a fantastic job. And I also got the PDF document. Although the relationship James and myself had, I got it on Thursday afternoon at work. So it all came as a bit of a surprise to me as well. No heckling on time, because I know who you are and I know what time you've gone for. I'd also just like to say on behalf of the bride and groom, thank you all for coming here today, especially those of you who've travelled a long way. I know it's been a long journey. Some of you have only arrived yesterday. Some of you have arrived a bit early, but it is really appreciated. And I know James and Hannah really appreciate you all being here. So just moving on then to essentially probably what you've all been waiting for from me, and that is some stories about the real James. What's been quite entertaining sitting here listening to Chris and James is everybody else's views of this person is somewhat different to the person I know. Thankfully, I've also got to know Hannah over these last few years, and I also know exactly what I can and can't say. So, and I also appreciate, though, the cooking she does for us when the football's on a Tuesday or Wednesday evening. So I know which side my butter's. Or whatever that saying is, you know what it is. You know the saying. When I was actually asking around for some advice as to what to say, what stories to say, one of the things James was keen to point out was that, as most of you will know, weddings are an expensive event. And never been one to miss an opportunity to push for a bit of business. He did want me to point out that Clifford French, the sports and entertainment brand consultancy, who get your business talked about, will be available all evening to advise you of how they can improve the returns of your business on an annual basis. Now, if anyone else like me doesn't know what that means, possibly also a good idea to talk to James and Dan about what exactly they do. Something to do with the Sun newspaper, bazaar, that sort of thing, photos, celebrities. Apparently there'll be a celebrity guest later on this evening, according to certain people. That's what they're all about, people. Rumours. Right, so I was asking some of my good friends, some of James's good friends, for some stories, some advice, and to be fair, they were all fairly useless at providing anything of any interest, to the point where, yeah, that'll do, or, yeah, you know, that story, whatever it was, that'll do, yeah, not really that bothered, it's your problem. Thankfully, a good friend of James, who goes by the name of Bros, to those of us who know him, to Mark, those who doesn't, was only too willing to provide a number of stories on the understanding I didn't mention his name for fear that somebody might get him back in due course. Sadly for Mark, he is named throughout the speech. Anyway, that said, it's been a pleasure growing up with James over the years. As James mentioned, I asked my mother a couple of weeks ago exactly how I met James. She wasn't particularly clear herself. Apparently we were babies, or James was just born, or something along those sort of lines, but there wasn't any real facts, which was slightly disappointing. So anyway, I've known James since we first were born, or first conceived, potentially. There's lots of rumours flying around. I don't look like any of my parents. Who knows? Yeah, the haircut's the same because Hannah made us have the haircut done at the same time, at the same place, to make sure we sort of matched a bit. To be fair, James has always been destined to be a successful person. I mean, even though we went to Trinity School in Leamington Spa, which was not known for turning out successful people, he somehow managed to survive with something of an academic record, sufficient enough, obviously, to get onto university. But a couple of interesting incidents whilst we were at school I thought it would be worth touching on just to expose the real man we have in front of us today. What many of you won't realise is that James was actually responsible for a 3-year strategic bullying campaign against a ginger lad in our year. This culminated with this poor boy throwing a brick through our bus window in an attempt to stop this horrific bullying from happening. We're all very ashamed, and clearly none of us took the blame for that. Somehow we survived that incident, mainly because there was so many of us. Quite a few of them are sitting on table 11, I think, so we're all in this together. And the ginger lad is not the guy sitting in the back there. Anyway, during our time at school, and this is by no means a reflection on James's upbringing, we did often find ourselves in a pub, the Star or Mirage, on a Thursday or Friday night in Leamington. This would often lead to lots of drunkenness, lots of rampaging through Leamington, and all sorts of things that Auntie Sylvia would be very, very ashamed to hear about. I won't go into the detail, but I'm sure Auntie Sylvia and myself will be having a chat later on this evening. So I spoke to the boys and said, come on guys, there must be a couple of interesting stories or particular incidents you want me to mention. There's really two that really jumped out, and everyone confirmed, yeah, that's what I think when I think of James. This is not obviously that great reflection on James, in terms of, not that there's only two, but the actual stories that they mention. The first one was relating to how James was fondly referred to as Stiffo at school. That's Stiffo. As it's a family occasion, I didn't really feel it was relevant or appropriate that I went into detail. However, Michael Feely, could you raise your arm, please? Michael Feely is actually the man responsible for this nickname, so if you go to the bar, buy him a drink, I'm sure he'll be happy to tell you all about how this genius nickname evolved. It's not what you think, though, people. And then the real story that caught everyone's imagination that they really wanted me to mention was what is often referred to in the media and sporting circles as the British basketball scandal of 1999. What many of you might not realise is that we are blessed to be in the presence of an international athlete, someone who has been capped for their country on the international stage, nonetheless. Now, you might be thinking, if I'd been capped for my country, if I was a national sporting hero, this would be the sort of thing I would talk about regularly. And by the look of all your faces, none of you actually realised this was actually the case. That was because, despite numerous young children from underprivileged backgrounds spending years training, working hard, shooting their 3 points, trying to make it. Unfortunately, due to a lack of funding, opportunity presents itself for some checkbook caps. This still disappoints me to this day. What did amuse me, and Tim and James' brother and myself were just chatting about it earlier, was actually the fact that we then got to have the opportunity to hear about what I can only describe as white men can't jump being put into practice. Those 12 seconds of court time will live in James' memory forever. That's enough of the early life. I don't have a great memory, and what I do remember is James from some late teens moving onwards, really, and that's where sort of the good times or the amusing times for me certainly start to roll. Despite a less than glittering academic record, although slightly better than mine, James somehow secured a place in Nottingham Trent University. That's not the red brick, that's the sort of old polytechnic. James managed to join up with a gang who seemed to take pride in calling themselves Team Single, which always confused me. They're kind of sitting in that region around their Team Single, although I don't think any of you are actually single anymore. Is that correct? Miracle. It's a miracle. Anyway, Team Single proceeded to enjoy their time in Nottingham, something to do with a 3-to-1 ratio or something along those sort of lines I've heard rumours of. Anyway, it was at Nottingham that James first found his love of skiing. I'll come on to that in a minute. I know skiing, it's interesting, isn't it? Getting some laughs in the back of the room, they know what's coming. Having completed his studies at Nottingham, no one really knows what he studied or what actually went on because it's a bit of a blur to him and everyone associated with Nottingham Trent University. James, with his friends Rich and Matt, decided to set off and travel the world. Having found themselves in Sydney in the winter of 2004, James was pining for the feel of fresh snow under his feet, the cold mountain breezes, and the comfort of a log fire became too much. And before they knew it, he'd booked his flight, and off he was for a short break in Whistler in Canada. Within a couple of days of arriving in Whistler, James was back home in Warwickshire. One can only speculate about what happened on those mountains, but all we know is James's love of skiing was never the same again. So, fresh from his amazing travels around the world, poor Aunt Sylvia had the map on her wall with ready to draw arrows with Francesca of all his travels. There was one arrow to Australia, Sydney, and that was it. He was never cut out for backpacking. I didn't really know why he went in the first place, to be honest. So anyway, fresh from his travels, James decided it was time for a fresh start and time to move on with a new career. PR was the chosen route. This led him to the bright lights of London, more specifically Clapham in South London. London is London, for those of you from Canada or Australia. Sadly, despite teaming up with one of the founding members of Team Single, Bros, tough times were to follow. This is sad news. James could often be heard wailing his catchphrase at the time, "Why does everything always go wrong with me?" But as you say, you can't keep a good man down. And James was no different. Sensing the need for a change in location, a fresh start, Team Single relocated to Islington and called in reinforcements. In the need of someone to make them feel less pathetic, Rich was drafted in. Rich, raise your hand. There he is at the back. And in an early glimpse of his future career as a brand consultant, a new team name would be the final piece of the jigsaw. Team Handsome was born. And when I say Team Handsome, they actually called themselves Team Handsome. Sadly, Team Handsome failed to fire. Having spent many evenings with an attractive lady in my exclusive bachelor pad, I would often wander down the road. So that's a bit of an in-joke for anyone who had ever been to my bachelor pad. I would often wander down to visit Team Handsome, only to regularly find James huddled up in the cold in his Batman costume. Regularly could be heard bemoaning being beaten up in the Electric Ballroom in Camden, or annoyed at Broz's latest waving around of his commission cheque from work. Thankfully, though, this is not a horror story. James' pathetic and rather depressing life was soon to begin to look up. During the summer of 2006, you may remember that summer as a period of severe drought, James? The fellow members of Team Handsome began to suspect something was up. The key issue here was when James returned from the shops with 12 pairs of brand new, very expensive pants. Their suspicions were well founded. So it's August 2006 when, slightly different story to James, who stole my lines, what I told him about earlier. A sophisticated, attractive female by the name of Hannah Kent walked into James's life as a fresh-faced new recruit of Red Consulting. Despite coinciding with a period where James was trying to reinvent himself as one of the singers in the hit boy band Journey South, big band at the time, James still felt confident enough to fancy his chances. However, the feeling wasn't mutual, as you all know. Thank you for saying that earlier, James. It took James a good 12 months, every Thursday, Friday, apparently, at the Free Work Bar. So not only cheap, but slightly stalkerous. But finally, in a brief moment of weakness, Hannah gave in. She accepted James's offer of a date, and despite James's well-known touchy-feely approach to dating, the rest, as they say, is history. So, this is the part where now I go on to say something serious, emotional, etc. And anyone who knows James and myself knows that we don't really do this sort of thing. We have a sixth sense. We don't really need to speak to each other about this sort of lovey-dovey stuff. But anyway, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for me to stand here in front of you and say some kind words about James. James truly is a wonderful friend. He is truly a great guy. I know I wouldn't be where I am today without James by my side. We've helped each other through some tough times. We've had a lot of fun along the way, and I really hope we have some good years ahead of us. And Hannah, just want to say a few words to you. It's been a pleasure getting to know you. Really enjoyed everything you've done and helped me. Hannah's obviously always keen to sort of provide some advice, have a good chat, always someone you can turn to. And to be perfectly honest, she's made James a much better person. She's made James much more open to new things, and generally he's much happier since he's got to know you. So thank you for all that. I'd also just like to say, Hannah, you are joining a truly fantastic family. If I wasn't with the family I was with, I would love to be a Clifford. I may be one. We'll never know. But enjoy and make the most of it. I'd just like to, as James said, probably move through this fairly quickly because it's not the easiest topic to talk about. But James, I'd just like to say, I know if your dad was here today, I know he's watching over us. I know he'd be as proud as you today as I am. I know he'd be looking forward to watching you progress with Hannah, your new wife, through the years. And I know he'd want you to enjoy today, the rest of your life. And really live it as best you can. I know he's very proud of you, and I share your views that we all wish he was here with us today. Now comes the word of advice piece. I've had to rewrite this a couple of times because some people didn't like what I was going to say. I've done this before. It didn't end well. However, on this occasion, I have actually given this some genuine thought. There's not a lot of words here, but I have actually thought about these, and they mean something to me, and I hope they mean something to you. But I think what's clear to me, and I'm sure is what's clear to everybody else here today, is that anyone who's spent time in the company of James and Hannah knows that they truly are very much in love. I hope you support each other. I hope you keep trying new things, and I hope you live your dreams. Well, I don't know what the timing's like, but I'm about done, so just check your watches and see who's winning, and mine's a bit at the bar. So finally, it gives me immense pleasure to invite you all to be upstanding. Please raise your glasses. Please join me in a toast to James and Hannah. I'm sure you're going to be happy together, and I speak for everyone here when I say we wish you both the very, very best for you, for your life, for the future. Ladies and gentlemen, the new Mr. and Mrs. Clifford, James and Hannah.